At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Jack Daniels is proudly served in fine establishments, questionable joints, and everywhere in between. So, no matter where you go, in every bar, you'll always know someone by name.
Jack. Jack and Coke?
Shot of Jack?
Jack Daniels, please.
Right away.
Now, that's what makes Jack, Jack.
Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Jack Daniels and Old No. 7 are registered trademarks. Copyright 2025 Jack Daniels. Tennessee whiskey. 40% alcohol by volume. 80 proof.
Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello and welcome to 4Kids Flashback. My name is Tara Sands and I'm joined by
Steve Yurko.
Here we are. This is the podcast that goes behind the scenes of 4Kids, the company that brought the English versions of shows like Pokémon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And One Piece and F-Zero and Mew Power, and maybe you remember Funky Cops to the U.S. and English-speaking audiences. What is your shirt today, Steve?
It's another one from Yeti. I'll give one a shout out, but it's a bunch of slimes from Dragon Quest and made to look like an ice cream cone.
Yes, I didn't know if they were poop emojis or slime.
Yeah,
okay,
I could see that now. Yeah. You might.
I was
think
like, are
that.
you eating a poop cone? Okay.
I think the poop emoji's ripped off of the Dragon Quest slimes. I would say so.
Oh.
Or I don't know. Well, they'd rip off a Toriyama because I feel like it was Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, who I think he made famous the poop design. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I actually do have something pretty serious I want to talk about.
I thought talking about poop was pretty serious. But
it is. Poop is serious.
Shows what I know.
But there is something happening in the convention world and in pop culture that I feel the need to address.
Oh, God.
Because I don't understand it. It goes by the name Labubu.
Are those the stupid, like, trendy little doll things?
With the, like, creepy smiles that look like little monsters, but and they're everywhere I go now. And I don't get the rage.
Now that I know about it, I'm probably going to say it everywhere. Because they did, like, a One Piece collab. I'm like...
Yes! They did the chopper.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, yeah, those are toys I won't buy.
But it's a life-size chopper. Okay.
Because then I was told about this trend, and then I was at the gym, and I saw, like, on, like, the Today Show, they were talking about it, and I'm like, yeah.
Okay, so here's what I know. Apparently a K-pop star liked it, and then it blew up.
That's how it always is.
Yeah. So, but it's everywhere I go, and people are spending insane amounts of money on them, and like sometimes it's a mystery box, so you don't know which one, then they buy them all, and then it's a Pop Mart thing, I guess everyone's getting them at, and I just don't... I'm not... The aesthetic of them just doesn't speak to me.
First of all, save your money.
Oh,
Second of all, I was going to get really kind of bleak here. I'm like, so does everyone have money except us, the artists?
Right. I don't know. I can't believe people are... sorry. And maybe you guys love Labubus. There's a great video of Adam MacArthur. He's Yuji on Jujutsu Kaisen, and he didn't realize how big the One Piece one was going to be. So there's a great video of him unboxing the like enormous thing he got. It's check out his Instagram to see that. But I
don't know. Like, we've been around for a while. Like, I've seen it. I've seen it all, and I'm sure you've seen it too. I mean, Furbies, Tamagotchi.
Right, but didn't we maybe think this with Pokemon?
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm getting at. Like,
but now I'm gonna get on a soapbox here. I mean, Pokemon, Yeah, it's a huge marketing scheme, but I think there's a lot more thought and care put into Pokemon than there is just
right.
It's a Labubu, but it makes it look like this thing instead. It's just it's just the toy, and that's where it ends.
Right,
Pokemon, there's the game, and there's kind of all into
and
that.
it all hit around the same time. Like if within 6 months to a year, Labubu put out the game, the cards, the thing. Like I think again, the Pokemon thing is because my aunt and uncle actually asked me this weekend because their 5-year-old grandson is sons, both of them are getting into Pokemon, and they're like, "Can you explain this to us? Because we watch the show and we don't get it." And I found myself really defending Pokemon, and I was kind of like. Listen, I think it starts with the artwork. I think it speaks to people of all ages. But I said there's also the way in through the cards, and there's the way in through the show. And I was they're like, we still don't get it. But I was like, but there's lessons in the show. It's not just fluff. I love that the Pokemon say their own names because I like then asking a kid what they thought the Pokemon said, and they all have a different answer. So there's imagination going into it, and.
There's really putting yourself into it. I think we probably talked about this in the past, but that was the beauty of Pokemon is you could envision yourself in that world. It's like, who would I be? What would my team be? Or stuff like
the hero, and also it's a relatable hero. He's not perfect. He's 10, and also like in this world with very few adults around. Like I think kids want to be Ash most of the time, even if that maybe they relate more to Misty or whatever, but I think kids are like, oh, I could do that. I'm almost 10.
Right.
Like, or 10 is the age of 10 is within reach.
Yeah. I mean, those games hit when I was 10, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, but this Labubu, it's the first thing that felt like a 90s fad to me in a very long time. I think because just the world moves much quicker now with trends, and I saw this and I'm just like, oh yeah, this was just like childhood for me. This is just we're back on the playground, aren't we?
It looks like a Furby though. Like that's the closest thing except with the creepy smile.
Yeah. I think but there's so much of that because there's other things I'm into. It's just like I try to get the One Piece trading card game cards just to collect them, and that's super competitive. They just announced they're going to give some away at a Dodgers game. And I'm like,
so now you got to go to the Dodgers game.
I kind of want to go to the Dodgers game.
Dodgers games are fun. At least that's fun.
I like a baseball game. I hate that now I have to spend like over $100 for nosebleeds.
Yeah.
What happened?
You want that card.
I want that card.
I see it. I see it. You want that card.
Yeah. But,
are you playing the game with the One Piece cards, or are you just
I don't play all that much. I don't have the time.
But you know how. Okay.
But yeah, like I know like the basics, but it was a card game where I'm like, okay, like I'll commit to this. Like it's One Piece. It's the one thing. But I don't know.
It's your one thing.
Yeah. But like I don't know, could you see me clipping a Labubu to like my, my jeans and walking around?
No.
Saying hello, fellow kids.
Listen, I'm sorry if I've offended anyone who loves the Labubu. There's a comedian from SNL, Chloe Fineman, did a video. She's like, here's what I think Labubus sound like. She was like, I'm very evil, but I'm also cute. And it was the funniest. And I was like, yes, that's what I'm evil, but I'm cute. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what a friggin' Labubu sounds like. Our guest, I'm sorry, we haven't said our guest is awesome. He's in our Zoom waiting room. We'll be right back with Jay Goede. Our guest today is Jay Goede, whose name I am sure gets butchered all the time because it's Goede. You guys know him from playing Mewtwo. Welcome to the show. And what is the strangest way you've heard your name pronounced?
Go Eddie.
Yeah.
Go Eddie. Go Eddie.
Yeah.
Which is kind of close. It's Go Eddie or Goody. Those are the two.
Good.
Two
yeah.
you can stick with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goede. We get Goede too sometimes.
Okay.
Goede. But it's a good, strong German name. It's actually, my name is actually, it means good or good one somewhat in Dutch and German. And it's Huda in Dutch, an H sound. But yeah, it's become Goede.
Okay. Look what we're learning.
Yeah, Goede in German. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good name. It's funny because in trying to come up with the clever, because our episodes all have like We try to make clever titles based on like a pun, like the way Pokémon episodes did.
Right.
And I wanted to use Getty, but I knew that it would be an issue and people not knowing how it was pronounced.
I'm going to say it anyway, right?
So I was going to make it like Getty rhymes with spaghetti or like...
That's it. That was my nickname in college, J Spa.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so
speaking of, let's okay, you've given me a perfect segue. Let's talk about when you started acting. I know you went to an amazing college for drama. So can you talk a little about your background and what got you started in this crazy world?
Sure. Well, like your fellow co-host, I was an artist growing up. I was a child that painted and drew in the corner and disassociated or whatever I had to do to kind of be a kid that was kind of quiet. And so I spent a lot of time drawing comic book characters and animated characters. There was a big book that I had to save up for called The Art of Walt Disney, which was this big, epic book, a very thick, hardcover book. And my parents let me save up for that and buy that. And I just memorized that thing. And it foldouts of Disney storyboards and illustrations and original anime. So that was my fascination. And my dream as a young kid was to work for Disney someday. And as I got closer to college.
May I interject? Was this the big white book that just had Mickey on it with a paintbrush?
Yes, the raised Mickey on it with the paintbrush. Yes, did you have it? Yeah, wasn't it amazing? Didn't that just make your world? Yeah, it rocked my world.
I still have it, hopefully. Yeah.
Do you really? I think I lost mine.
Aw. Did you have to do any weird jobs to raise your funds for this book? Were you like, I'll clean my room?
I had a paper route.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. And which was really my poor dad having to do the paper route with me on the weekends. It's always the parents on the weekends, coming to help out. So with the Sunday Times, Sunday paper. So, but anyway, that was my goal. And I went to undergrad at first a state school in Minnesota, then the University of Minnesota, which I started as an art major, then went into set and costume design. And focused on that. And then I kept auditioning for plays. I had this need to be an actor, I think, somewhere from my childhood. And my brother was an actor. And so I had this great kind of desire and I kept auditioning and getting roles. And finally, in my third year or so of this, I had an amazing man named Stephen Caney, who's no longer with us, and another wonderful teacher named Barbara Reed. And the two of them said, you could do this. We think you're talented enough to do this.
Oh, wow.
If you want our support, we'll help you. And that changed my world, because the whole trajectory of where I thought I was going changed. And they helped me prepare auditions for drama schools. So I did the big, I think we all did it at some point. If you're an actor, you've gone to those league auditions, they called them. And then there was Yale, Juilliard, and NYU. And I was lucky enough to get into Yale Drama School. And that's where my journey started, really. That's where it all started. So.
And we should remind our listeners that's where you met Matthew Sussman, correct?
Matthew Sussman, the amazing Meowth. Yes. One of the best people out there. I'm a great man and a gentleman and a funny man and a great Meowth, as we know.
Yeah, I love that you guys were Meowth and Mewtwo, the two. Yale Drama School boasts alumni like talking cats and yes.
Right. Strangely feline, yes, whatever they are. Especially Mewtwo.
Yeah, now I know that Yale does teach voiceover now. They've implemented things like that, but I would guess that back then it was mostly theater focused, right?
Yeah, in a snotty way, almost. Yeah, it was very much we unlike Juilliard and NYU training programs where they were actually having audition classes for film. We had none of that. Mm-hmm. And so there was kind of this arrogance about it almost like, well, you're theater actors. We're training you for the theater. We're not training you for film and television. Although many people from graduating from Yale often go on to film and television work. It was not part of the curriculum. And to irritating points of, the extreme,
I get that. Yeah.
So we didn't really have a prepared, that was the tricky part always about coming out of any school. Stop being a theater actor and tone it down for film. But yeah, we both went to Yale. Yeah.
So was voiceover work on you were this fan of Disney, so you must have thought at some point about there's people doing that. But did it ever occur to you maybe that's something I could do?
Well, like any young actor, I auditioned for anything I could, that my agents had set me up for. So I auditioned for commercials, a lot of commercials, got a few commercials. Those kind of supported me those first few years. And I did a Chrysler commercial. And I think there was a voiceover for that. So I had some experience, but to be totally honest with you, it was a world that I could not get into. I kept knocking on the door of the voiceover stuff, and just at that time, they were starting to use famous, familiar sounds in the voices they were having, do the ads for television, for any kind of a product. I mean, you hear it now all the time. Susan Sarandon or whoever it is, doing Renee Zellweger. That sounds like Renee Zellweger, probably is. And so we didn't really have I guess it wasn't the force of my commitment to get acting roles. So I think I did. Had I focused on it harder, commercial and voiceover stuff, I think I would have probably been able to get some work. But the reason this whole job came about was because I was doing a play with my good friend Matt Sussman, who we were doing a play that has a filthy name. It came from London.
Shopping and Fucking, it's called. We've said it before. Yeah. It's a piece of literature. We can say it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. And I just didn't know if it was proper here. But yeah, we were doing this great. We'd done Angels in America together. We were both lucky enough to cover the original company.
Go back to that for a second. Because you're not that long out of school and you book this insanely heavy, well-regarded show, Angels in America, on Broadway. That must have been very heady stuff for somebody that young to be on Broadway doing this.
It was incredible because it was such a beautiful piece of literature too, and theater, and to be a part of that, something historical every night was just. It's hard to describe how it was, and I'm sure I had the sensation that I used to have playing Shakespeare, where it was something genius that I was allowed to do, and the audience was carried there in the same way everyone was that night. And it in two parts, a play that was so epic and so important for people and so personal for so many people.
I'm tearing up just talking about it.
I mean, I'm choking up now because it was, I had a beautiful, as Joe Pitt, the Mormon lawyer, had a beautiful speech where he basically confesses to his mother that he's homosexual. And I remember just the audience leaning forward in that speech every night because he couldn't get it out. And that kind of, the beauty of that kind of writing, Tony Kushner's writing, is a gift for any actor. And to get to do that every night and to watch the angel come in and Ella McLaughlin and just to work with amazing actors. I got to work with Marcia Gay Harden and Cynthia Nixon and brilliant actors as opposite me, and then Matthew Sussman, among others.
Matthew Sussman.
Matthew Sussman.
But but to work on something that important is
it was
a big deal. Yeah,
it was a gift, and I in a way I was spoiled because that was my first Broadway
that's
experience.
What I was going to ask. Yeah,
and I mean nothing. Not spoiled, but I was so grateful for that, and nothing comes close to that as far as a theater experience. So, and my experiences on Broadway after that were challenging in different ways. They were not quite, it wasn't that they weren't great plays or anything. It was just a different kind of challenge that I was presented with, and was so grateful that I had that challenge to start out with because it was a difficult show, but just as an actor, it was a gift.
Right. And from that age, I know even for me, Pokémon was my first anime job. And it's where do you go from there? You think, everything's going to be like this. You think, every play, sure. I'm going to book play after play and they're all going to be Angels in America. And for me, it was okay, so when's my next Pokémon? It's kind of tricky stuff internally,
Yeah. And, speaking to that, I didn't realize how lucky I was to get Mewtwo. I really didn't understand that, and I can go on that whole story if you'd like.
Yeah, let's segue to that. So then you're doing this off-Broadway show with Matthew Sussman. I'm just painting the picture for everybody.
Yeah, a couple of years after Angels, we did a play. We were lucky to be cast in that play together. And he said, "Jay, there's this thing. Yeah, there's this thing." And I can't remember who was casting it, but he said it. I think it was. I can't remember the name of the building now, but. On Broadway, a place that all the actors went for auditions. Anyway, he's like, "You got to run up there and see if you can get an audition. They need a villain, and it's this weird cat-like kind of character." And I was like, "Oh, great! This doesn't sound like me at all." And I was playing a very cynical, dark character in Shopping and Fucking, and it was a very unhappy play for many reasons, not necessarily for the actors, but it was a deep, deep, dark world we were living in. And so I think that very much affected where I was at as an actor and my mood in general at the time. And I got to go in and read for this part, and they said, "Well, we're auditioning. We've had a hard time finding people." They were kind of curt and a little succinct in how they were responding to the actors, and I knew it was going to be quick. But they said, "We need this villain," and so I auditioned for him. For the character that created Mewtwo, Dr. Fuji. And I think a couple other characters. And they said, well, we're going to let you know as soon as possible. We're casting, I think we have to know by this weekend.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Hey, this is Tara Sands, and I'd love to meet you at a convention near you. Here's where I'll be for the next couple of months, June 21st and 22nd, Heroes Dutch Comic-Con. Then on June 24th, I'll be doing a Whatnot with Rotterdam Comics at 6:30, but that's Netherlands time for those of you there. Then June 25th, I'll be in Wales at the Collector Sector. June 28th, 29th, I'll be with Megan Hollingshead. Oh, I'll be with her for all of these. In Glasgow at the Scotland Card Show. July 11th through 13th, Cap City Comic-Con in Lansing, Michigan. July 26th, who's in Palmyra, Pennsylvania? I'll be at the Nerd Place. August 2nd, the Poke Hive in San Antonio. August 9th, I'll be at an to be announced Midwest store, so check my Instagram for updates. August 16th, I'll be on Whatnot with Nostalgic Relics if you want to order some stuff being signed. August 30th, 31st, I'm going to be in Texas again. I can't tell you where yet. I have a bunch of things in between I can't announce yet. Then December 7th, I will be at Charlie's Comic-Con in Fort Myers, Florida. Follow my Instagram for any updates at Tara Sands VO, and I hope to meet you guys all in person soon. Thanks.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
And these are my memories. They might be unclear, but that's what I remember. Right. And then he said, well, so basically the next day they said, can you come in and do this part? We want to offer you Mewtwo.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't think I had time to be intimidated by it. I don't think I had time to really worry about it. I was so focused on this play and what it was doing every night to me emotionally that I just wanted to get through it. Mm-hmm. And I remember being a very hot day in a very small room with, kind of made up kind of 4 walls for this little booth we were in. Did you do yours in New York?
That's what I was going to ask you. So, I mean, I'm surprised you're thinking that and again, memory is so imperfect. So yeah, I'm trying to think where those auditions would have been, but it's possible that they would have been in, because I don't think we recorded that first movie where we usually recorded everything at 4Kids, but this was not done that way.
4Kids. It was 890 Broadway. That was the space that I auditioned at. I'm pretty sure it was 890 Broadway or somewhere in Chelsea.
I'm looking up in now I'm like, that's so funny.
But I just remember them putting up 4 cloths and a screen that was really kind of jollied up, and I remember it being very, very much not a booth. I thought it was just kind of a makeshift booth in one of those buildings, in one of those audition
That's so
buildings.
Interesting, because I remember for the movies that it suddenly was the big, because we used to have a television size screen when we would dub the TV show, but I remember it being a fancier setup. But it's, again, this is all possible that we just recorded at different times, or...
Well, yeah, I definitely remember a screen, almost a movie screen. And I remember kind of a grainy quality of the film. I don't think the film was an edit, that it was not the clear edit, I don't think. I just remember being really hard to figure out.
And in your mind, was there something that inspired the voice you did? Or was it just this is my take on a villain? Or how did you come up with the voice?
Where everything changed, where I feel like I learned how to be an actor was I got to do the Scottish play. And in drama school, I got to play Macbeth. Okay. And that kind of colored, I think, my thinking about Mewtwo, because he was so in his head and so ruminating on everything and talking to himself. And it was so from an internal point of view. And that's very Macbeth or Richard III or any of those great villains that we, grow to love, even though they're hateful. And I don't think I ever thought of Mewtwo as hateful. I definitely thought he was dark. And I think where I was at with this play that I was doing every night was dark.
Yeah.
And so I think that really colored my seriousness for the character. But I don't remember it. I remember being a little irritated having to do this. And I don't mean to sound arrogant. I just didn't understand. I had no clue as to what I was doing as far as where that whole thing, Pokemon, was going to go.
Right. And I think we've said this on the show before, like we all, for the most part, most of us moved to New York to work in theater. We were very grateful for these jobs, but we considered them often our day jobs while we did theater at night. And
yes,
we
so.
fancied ourselves very serious theater actors. and while this was fun and interesting, like your foray into this was playing a very dark character. I think it would have been very different had you worked on the show and been like, hey, I'm here hey guys, what's up? You had a very different foray into this than a lot of us did. So I get why you were like, what am I doing? A serious cat? What is happening?
Yeah.
Get me to the theater. Like it doesn't make sense.
You hit it on the head. No, that's exactly what the thinking was. And my arrogance just in not learning about it, because I didn't have much time to learn about it, because I think I was at the end of the audition process, because I think Matt had indicated they were having a hard time finding Mewtwo. And again, this might be all created in my head. This is my version of it. That memory is not reliable, as you said. It could be just that this is how I remember
sometimes it just combines different things. But again, this
different
is
stories,
your version, and it's great.
So what I remember is that, and I just remember being in a dark place for that show. I mean, Shopping and Fucking was a wonderful comedy as well. But I was playing a heroin addict who had these two little heroin drug dealers working for me, and I was in love with them as people and in a sexual way too. So it was this weird, dark, and so I was just happy to have the job. I knew it was a buyout for Mewtwo and for the Pokemon stuff, and I just remember them being a little bit dry in their direction, a little bit succinct and not real warm, and I was probably irritated by that, and probably irritated that I had to do this on my day off, or whenever I did record this. And grateful that I got the job, of course. But I honestly, from the grainy part of the film, and again, this is my memory, it might have been a beautiful copy of it, but I just remember thinking, what the heck is this? Yeah. What is this? I had no knowledge of anime,
of course.
or they used to call it really racist. I think I remember a term called Jap animation, which is
I remember first hearing that.
Jap animation.
Steve, do you know more about like what that term? If it's a derogatory term, or is it just what we used to call it?
Sounds more derogatory, than what I'm familiar with, Japanimation, which...
Okay, you hit it. You hit it on the head.
That's probably what we were thinking. Yeah.
Japanimation, thank you. I just was putting the stress.
And we never meant it in a bad way. that's what, again, that was the term.
Because that was just like the made-up Western term where it's cartoons from Japan, and then eventually
that's what I was trying to
anime,
say.
like the terms anime, manga, that was adopted into the what should I call it? I don't know, just the
vernacular.
Yes.
Yeah, we figured it out. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, and you're right. I was stressing the wrong part. But I remember that term somewhere, thinking, I guess, especially much later, that it was kind of racist. But anyway, doesn't matter. I mean, it does. But,
it does. Yeah. But again, if you didn't intend it in that, we never intended it in that way.
I just had no knowledge of it, and I was very ignorant of it all, of the process, and also the beauty of the animation. I didn't appreciate that till many years later, and I think that's in general my feeling about the job. I got this thing. It was a buyout. I was very, very embarrassed. I almost didn't take it, to be totally honest with you, because I just joined SAG. As you know, I'm sure you've talked about in the series, it was a non-union job.
Right, which is why you picked a new name, which came back to bite. We'll get into that.
Well, yeah. It was a long journey back, but it was something I was embarrassed about. Not because the job itself wasn't quality or it wasn't something beautiful for people and eventually. But it was just something that I didn't talk about. I kind of wanted to disappear. I thought would disappear. And I didn't think people were going to really focus on it. I knew it was coming to America, but I didn't know it was coming to America in the way that it's become a part of our, lexicon and our daily lives.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Did you go to the premiere for the movie? Do you remember?
I did not go to the premiere. I don't even know if I was invited to the premiere, to be honest with you. I mean, I must have been invited.
Yeah, I'm not sure for that one. I think we had a premiere. I don't even remember. I think we did for that one. I know we did for one of them, but
there's a memory that there was a premiere, and then perhaps I was invited. I know I was probably doing something else, and I didn't go.
You probably had a show that night, honestly.
I mean, probably, where I was out of town or doing a show or something. And I also just remember that, you know what? I think I was in. Yeah, I might have been filming something in London for a few months there where I was doing a BBC thing or something. But I remember being out of town. I couldn't go to LA. And that might be not a reality either. I might have invented that. So I just remember not being able to go. And I don't remember being invited. So those are two things.
Those are two, yeah. So okay, so you pick this name, Philip Bartlett. Is that right? Is that the fake name you use? Yeah. Where does that name come from?
Well, I think isn't that technically your stripper name?
The street. Okay.
Yeah, and my middle name is Philip. My middle name is Philip, named after a wonderful relative. But my name is Jay Philip Goede, and I grew up in Bartlett Boulevard in Mound, Minnesota.
Oh my God, you really did just take your stripper name.
Philip Bartlett. Yep.
Wait, okay, we do middle name and street. Steve, what would your stripper name be? We haven't gone into this on the show before.
It's your middle name.
Let's review. Middle name and first street.
So it'd be
and the street you grew up on.
Anthony Canterbury. Yeah.
That's a good stripper name.
Oh, wow.
I would be
That's
Jane.
Cool. This is from history,
Jane
though,
Jolin.
so if I ever use it.
This
can't be traced back to me. This is
yeah.
Here. They're going to find out.
Right.
That is funny. Jay, that is hilarious that's how you picked it. I didn't realize that.
It's silly. I didn't. And I used to make jokes. I think that's your stripper name. I think that's your stripper name. And I didn't even remember until now that you said that. I mean, you seem to understand immediately that is something that I kind of didn't even know if that was true, that it was your stripper name. I kind of just said, because some of you often said, just pick your stripper name. I'm like, what's that? And I kind of remember that story over the years, but I didn't know if that's something.
Well, there's different versions of how to get your stripper name. Like I think there's different like formulas. Let's call them formulas.
Right. Yes, exactly. Well, that was the one I chose.
That is hilarious and amazing that's how you got it. Okay, so now Philip Bartlett works this job. You forget about this. You left New York to go teach, I believe, right? At a certain point.
I did. I left New York. I have struggled my whole life with mental illness, and this is a very heavy turn.
We talked about this. Honestly, Jay and I talked about what we were okay to talk about. So I appreciate you being open about it.
And it's a weird segue, but I was having a terrible time when I left New York. My solution at the time was drugs and alcohol.
Right.
To my mental illness issues. They had not been diagnosed. I was in therapy for several years before I left. Not diagnosed officially, but I come from a family of depressives and suicides. My mother, my sister, my uncle are all suicides. So it was something I took very seriously. It was something that was destroying my life, as was the addiction. And I had to get out of New York. So I went to New York, went to South Florida, got sober, and have since had many intervals of non-sobriety in there. But sober today and grateful one day at a time. Yeah. But it was a dark part of my life. Leaving New York was one of the saddest things I did, and also one of the things that freed me. I had a beautiful sponsor in Florida, wonderful man named Larry, and Larry said, "Just stay a year, Jay. Stay a year. Give it a year. Get sober and and then go back to New York and see if you even want to act after a year. Just see where your head's at." And I did. And then he said, "Well, how are you feeling?" "Well, stay another year." And I stayed another year and another year. And suddenly 8 years later, I was no longer an actor. I was working for Kaplan University. And I had said goodbye to acting. And it was a difficult process. It took so long to kind of slowly, my agents stopped calling because they were like, "Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up? We got this thing for you." And I just slowly said, I can't now. I'll come up next year. So it was a slow letting go of the theater. And I think if it had been overnight, I wouldn't have been able to handle it, and I would have been running back.
Right.
But it saved my life.
Yeah, your sobriety is much more important. And but
it was the love of my life too. It was hard to say goodbye. It really was. I grieved it over years, period. The grieving of your career and just, I loved theater so much. I was such a theater animal. I was such an actor. And I was so much of my happiness and my unhappiness was tied up in my acting. I think it's very classic. We're not the most functional or perhaps happy of people sometimes, although there's a lot of joy in acting, and some of us are great comics and comedians, and there's certainly beautiful things in different colors we find as an actor. But I very much was drawn to tragedy and darker emotions, and to get to do it on stage, something like Joe Pitt every night is amazing, or the role I was playing in Shopping and Fucking, or whatever the show was, as was Frog and Toad, beautiful, lovely family shows. But I was really sad to say goodbye to it. I don't know if I ever came to terms with why I left it. I knew that I was keeping myself alive at the time. It was live or die at the time. Yeah. So that's where it took me, and that's where, I mean, that was how dark it went. And like I'll talk about later, I had other revisits to that happy, unhappy place of drug use. So yeah, and mental illness. So
yeah, we talk about, like I always say, and Steve's heard me say this a lot, like a subplot of this podcast has become leading a creative life and how it's often very different than what we thought it would be. And
very
that you
much so.
Find if you told 22-year-old Jay, well, listen, you won't be doing theater, but you're going to have a pretty fulfilling creative life. You would have been like, no, I'm going to be doing theater. Absolutely not. This is my thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Same with me. And now we have hindsight and we can look back. And I know I see your paintings online. I know you've taught. I know there's different outlets where we can have fulfillment, and it doesn't have to be getting applause, and it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
And that, became a part of the getting happy too. I mean, it sounds corny or cliche, but I realized why I was an actor. Why am I doing something that makes me miserable? Oh, I see, because I like to be miserable. Oh, I get to do this part, which takes me out of myself for a while, for 2 hours and 3 hours, whatever it is. I come home and I am back to miserable Jay. And it wasn't that clear. I had joyful parts of my life, and I'm a very joyful person at times. But I think the mental illness wasn't treated properly. I think I needed help with the addiction. And so it was the perfect storm, and then it cleared. And then when that happened, I got a chance to have a whole different life. And it does open up in a way that you don't think it's ever going to open up. Yeah.
With a Venmo debit card, you can Venmo more than just your friends. You can use your balance in so many ways. You can Venmo everything. Need gas? You can Venmo this. How about snacks? You can Venmo that. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit Venmo.me/debit to learn more.
You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo.
The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
So you and I have talked a little bit about this, and without getting into too much detail, I know people did wonder why you didn't come back to reprise the role, and it all just this is the answer, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa. Why am I spacing Lisa's name?
Lisa Ortiz. Sorry.
Ortiz. Yeah. Good Lord. Beautiful, lovely, talented, brilliant Lisa Ortiz, who had been my experience of her, had called me. I actually was, this is how crazy I was at the time. I'd had a relapse on drugs and alcohol, was sober, but was incredibly sick they were trying to adjust my medication. I've been diagnosed as bipolar 2, hypomania. So that's kind of the softer, I don't know if you've all heard from Carrie Fisher over the years when she was alive and with us, and very, very vocal about her struggles with mental illness. And she was bipolar 1, which was the ones where you want to paint the entire house for 4 days and then you want to kill yourself afterwards, because you're just exhausted. I had and my mother was that one, the mania being very high and the lows being sad and low and her being dark in her room. And luckily enough, I have the lighter of the two. I have the one that rolls. It's like you're on the ocean and it goes up and down in a very short period of time. Usually you're happy and then you're a little dark, and you're happy and a little dark. And there are drugs and medication that I'm on that help that tremendously.
You don't have to go into any kind of detail, but I want people to know that you were offered it.
I was offered it.
Yeah. I want them to know why, because again, it was not like, oh, Jay didn't want it. I think it is important. And I think listen, there's lessons in all of this. I 100% think people are listening to this who relate to you and are being helped by hearing you be so open about it. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Yeah.
I hope so.
So long story short, I know you went to New York. It didn't work out. And other nice people got to do this. But now, today, years later,
yes. Can I just mention the gentleman who got to use it? I mean, I think we all know who an amazing...
Green. Yeah.
Dan Green. Dan Green is the nicest man you've ever want to meet. We were lucky enough to actually go to a Comic-Con where we were sat next to each other. And I couldn't have asked for a nicer man. And I knew his work. Of course, I knew his work. But I have to say, Dan Green is the shit. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met.
He's fantastic.
And he was so kind and complimentary, and I felt the same for him. So I couldn't have, like, somebody I respect more on this earth would, it'd be hard to find somebody like that. And Dan Green is a guy who did Mewtwo, and he did a beautiful job in the film.
And I mean, as you know, because of Matt Sussman being replaced in Pokemon or a 4Kids related show is like a badge of honor at this point, because it happened so much, even without people's knowledge. So I think welcome to the club is what I say.
And I didn't know that. I really didn't know that until I had such sadness about it, because and I didn't know and to be totally honest with you, it wasn't that something I dwelled on over the years, because it was something I wanted to forget. And I mean that with great respect to the role. And I'll talk about this later maybe, but the role has unveiled how magical this opportunity was for me. Right. But it didn't come until much later, until I realized how important Mewtwo was to people, how much he was loved, and how lucky I was to be a part of that, and to meet people like you, and to be a part of this thing that's a part of people's lives, and that's a whole nother story. But anyway, I didn't really mourn it, but I had an appearance once with an amazing woman named Veronica Taylor, who you probably know, of course. She talked, and she said, we all were replaced, and I had no clue, and that's how far away I was from Pokemon at the time. I really didn't know that everybody had been, the original company, most of them had been replaced.
So after season 8, so it was a tough time for everybody. But I want to know, like, how this Comic-Con, the appearances started for you. And because I wanted to say, like, watching you interact with fans has been lovely. I'm so happy for you that it has this different ending now for you. So
it is a different ending, and I hope a different future for me. With it saved my life. I was coming out of a very dark period with my mental illness. I was getting sober again, and we were in the middle of COVID, so I was very isolated. A gentleman kept calling me. Zach Beck is his name. Zach is one of my agents now, but he kept calling me saying, your fans need to meet you. And he's a very sweet, soft-spoken man. He wasn't any sleazy thing, but he said, we'd really like to help you meet your fans. And I just thought that was crazy. Yeah, it was. But
if you don't know, I get that.
I had no concept of what that would mean as far as, really meeting these people and what it meant to them. So he's like, you got to meet your fans. And I was like, how did you find me? And he said, well, there was something on Facebook, and there was this, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but out of the blue, somebody had called me about a year earlier and said, are you Philip? Can I ask a question, sir? Are you Jay Goede? I said, Jay Goede. I don't know how you got my number, but he's like, are you Philip Bartlett? And I said, yes, I'm Philip Bartlett. I said, how did you know that? How did you get my number? And he said, I think he found it somewhere. I don't know, through show business somewhere. But he said, I went to a show called Pokémon Live, and your voice was the same voice as the film. And it said in the program, Jay Goede. And so all of us have been wondering, they credited me with my real name in the program.
This
so
is
that
so
whole Pokemon Live was, my name in the program. And they weren't supposed to do that. I don't think they were supposed to do that.
Of course not.
And I didn't hear about this till later, many years after the fact. So it's nothing I could have said to, like, you want to change my name, They didn't do any of that. So he said, so we figured out the fans, and there was somebody who, I guess that's the weird thing about where you can make up somebody's story. What am I trying to say? Wikipedia.
Yes.
Wikipedia.
Oh, that. Yes.
People had gone in there and edited that I died of cancer in Apple Valley, Minnesota at 46 years old.
Oh my God.
They got that part right. They got the Minnesota part right.
But wait, is that because there was a Philip Bartlett who died? That's what I thought happened. But am I wrong about that?
I don't know. There might have been a Philip Bartlett who died in Apple Valley, Minnesota of cancer, but I don't think there was. I think somebody put together a story.
Okay, so what a relief to everybody that you were alive and well.
Well, and I think the fans were relieved, and people started calling me, and Zach was one of them. And I still had real trepidation about meeting fans because this was something I'm trying to explain in the context of it for people how my head worked with it all. So not only had there been some recent shame about the role with my own personal journey and frustration and sadness, and I hadn't really got over grieving, that stuff with regards to it, but that's a little later. But the thing is, I didn't understand what Mewtwo meant to people. So I would go to Target and I would see Mewtwo stuff or, Pokemon stuff, and I would just go, oh, there's that role that I did. And sometimes I mentioned it to friends, like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, I'm Mewtwo. And they're like, sure you are. You know who Mewtwo is, right? And I was like, yeah, no, you're not Mewtwo. There's Philip Bartlett in the movie. These people who knew the thing really well. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not Philip. I'm not Mewtwo. I'm just kidding. So I wouldn't talk about it because I didn't really want to draw focus. Still, I was kind of ashamed about it. I mean, and that I don't want to underestimate the fact that I did something illegal.
Right. No, we felt.
And that's what I was hung up on.
I get it. Yeah. No, because you took your acting career seriously and it was something we weren't supposed to do.
So I had a lot of shame about it. Yeah. And I never saw the final product. I think I saw it on videotape many years later, or maybe a year later. And I wasn't moved in the same way the children are by it. I think I had a different experience of it. I thought it was still a beautiful film.
Yeah.
But I didn't experience it in the way that people experience it properly,
Right. Well,
and
seeing
I didn't grow
that
up on
for
it.
the first time as an adult is incredibly different than seeing it as a child for the first time. Yeah.
So my relationship to it was not like, as a child, The Wizard of Oz and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Star Wars, those were the movies that made me want to be an actor. So those were personal and they were on every year. And I got to really have a relationship with those. And that has, from my understanding, a lot of people over the years that have come to say hi to me at Comic-Cons, that has been their experience of Pokemon, especially the first film. That's where we were introduced to people, and that's where their first experience, if not with the games, they came to see it in the theaters. And I think that is important. And some of them, it's their first time in the theater with their parents.
And it's a pretty heavy film considering what some of the other things. And so I think that's why especially this role sticks with them. Like, I mean, Steve, do you remember seeing it? Like,
oh, vividly. Before you were mentioning the differences between seeing it as a kid and an adult, it's like my dad, bless his heart, agreed to take me, and he fell asleep while I'm wide awake, glued to it like this, with my hands up to my nose here. But I'll never forget that time. It was just like that was like peak of the Pokemania at that point in 1999, and that was just a huge event. And it was a bunch of other kids just glued to it. And everyone's just also just naming every single character that shows up on screen. It was just like, everyone was going for Valor or something, proving their Pokemon knowledge. But it's for me, it's like, that was as a kid, as a Pokemon fan, I think Mewtwo Strikes Back, that was kind of like, the peak. It's like going to see it in the theater. It was a huge event.
And I didn't see it with a group of kids in the theater. I don't remember that. If I did, I don't remember it. But I didn't know how much it would mean to the kids, the dying of Ash and, that part. And I think that would have been profound, I think, if I'd seen it with kids in the theater.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. Really, as an adult, I didn't understand how much that movie meant to people.
Yeah, and listen, I think too, when we did it, there was no social media. There wasn't this instant feedback loop we have now. I wonder how much different it would have been to be part of a phenomenon in this day and age. Because even the small amount that we get now because of it is a little bit overwhelming sometimes. So to have been part of it with social media but at the very least, then we would have known how big it was and how profound, I think. Like,
so very much so.
It was a different time. And again, like now when I get a new role, I look it up. I can find information about it. You couldn't Google Pokemon and get information about Mewtwo.
No,
like there wasn't.
No, you really couldn't. And and we didn't have that international connection with the Japanese fans or Japan in general. I mean, of course we knew, but I didn't. Yeah, you couldn't go into Google and figure out what it meant to people over there, and that it was coming here and how big a deal it was. We're so tied to our phones and computers now, and Google, and we're so lucky that way. But it's also, I had no clue. And so this Zach Beck said to me, "You really got to meet your fans, Jay. They've been asking about you for years. They all think you're dead, and they want to meet you." And I really kind of went kicking and screaming to my first. I had a couple signings, they called them, where he sent me a Funko Pop, and I didn't know what a Funko Pop was. He's like, "Well, you got two Funkos," and I was like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, right.
You got two Funkos. And he kept saying that. I was like,
"What is this language?" Yes.
Yeah. So there are two Funko Pops that you know. Well, you know what they are, obviously, but people know that they're two from Mewtwo. And so he sent a bunch of those for me to sign before I ever did an event. And eventually I did an event, and that first event, I'll never forget it. But how much it just blew me away that people were coming to the table. They wanted to say hi to me. And all they do is thank you. They really just.
Oh, they're the kindest, sweetest people.
They're so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my fans, the Pokemon fans, as you know, are just some of the greatest people there are. And they have such passion for it. And it's just been a gift to meet them. And I think it couldn't have come at a better time for me. Like I said, I was coming out of a dark part of my life. Not sure if I'd ever return to the theater. Not sure if that was even healthy for me as a consideration for the future.
Right.
But I knew that I didn't know until that event and in my first couple Comic-Cons what Pokemon meant to people. Mm-hmm. I really didn't. And that's been the greatest gift about it is, Veronica told me I did a store signing with Veronica Taylor in a little shop in Texas. And she said, "Jay, we don't have to do a thing. The gift is they come right to the table. They tell you their whole life, some of them, or they just tell you a wonderful story about the first time they saw it and how much it meant, and they thank you." And she said, "You just have to enjoy it."
Yeah.
And
listen.
you have
they
no
want
onus
you
to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just want to hear you. And she said, "There's nothing more important than just making that connection and looking in their eyes and understanding how much." She said, "That's a gift." And she's been so right, because that has been the biggest joy of the whole thing. And it's put the film in perspective. It's put the series in perspective. It's put the role in perspective. And I've just been so blessed to have this chapter in my life as I head into my retirement fund years.
Yeah.
Not just, for that reason, but just I'm able to appreciate it in a way that I could never have as a young actor.
Yeah.
And especially with my mental health issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't have accepted it. I wouldn't have embraced it. And I just am so grateful that it's a part of my life. And I'm so lucky to be a part of it. And I know that sounds really corny, but I just feel so grateful. Like I met you, I met, Lisa, I've met Veronica, Matt and I are old friends. It's just brought me into so many people's lives that I never thought I'd meet. And the fans are just amazing.
They're unbelievable. I mean, I always say, like, we go to a city, and for when there's an anime convention in town or a Comic-Con, you're not meeting like the jerks. You're meeting the geekiest, greatest people in the city. So we're so friggin' lucky. It's all love. It's just, so good for our hearts, I think, for them and for us to have these conversations.
And it's such a great, for a slap in the face for me, who was not only a little arrogant about it, just kind of had forgotten it on purpose, the job. I just wanted to put it out of my head. And then because of all the journey for me was so turbulent at times, it was such a part of my past that I couldn't even remember.
Right.
And so I think have that now is just amazing. And to be proud of it and to just get the joy of, and to understand the character again even more, and to understand when people come up and tell you what he meant to people and what the movie meant to them, and just to see people turn into kids again when they come to the table. They're 8 years old again, or they're 5 years old, and that is just, who gets that? I once heard Florence Henderson, everybody's favorite mother from the Brady Bunch from the 70s, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said, if you told me that in 1969 or whatever the series came out, I was a Broadway girl who wanted to be leading musicals, and I was going to get a pilot with 6 children, a husband, a dog, and a maid, and it was highly expensive to produce, that I would be remembered as Mrs. Brady, I would have told you were nuts.
Right.
But embracing the legacy of that, what Pokemon means to people, what Mewtwo means to people, and how lucky I am to be a part of that legacy has been, and I don't mean to overemphasize it or underemphasize it. I just think that that's a gift. And if I pass away, not to be cryptic, I just think that's a gift to be able to say,
Right.
you were a part of people's childhood, and I didn't think it would be this role. I really didn't, because it's something I kind of wanted to forget. And I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity to just know how much it is a part of people's lives.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta Sky Miles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta Sky Miles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
This Pokemon machine is so much bigger than us, but there's some incredible ambassadors. Like Veronica, I watch her with the fans. I watch you. Listen, I think like Maddie Blaustein, had she been here today, what an incredible ambassador for the transgender community. How amazing that you're sharing this story that now that hopefully people will hear and be able to relate to. I'm so appreciative for people's openness with us.
Well, the series is amazing, by the way. I've enjoyed listening to it, and
thank you.
I think people are grateful to have this as a legacy for, we didn't know this part of the story. I mean, 4Kids and all that stuff, and I think you guys have done a brilliant job just making that pop for people, and you brought it to life. You really have, and I think that's really another fascinating part of this whole story is that, there's a history to this whole thing and how we got here, and I think the fans love that too. I think that's a great stuff for them to hear.
Yeah, because it's multi-generational now. It's like,
yes.
One of the, I was talking to like a kid at a recent thing and they're like, oh, I want to listen. I'm like, there's nothing they can't hear on here except for the name of your show, I guess. But it's not a podcast for kids because it's sort of like, oh, you watch all this stuff, feel the magic of it as a child, and then later come back and learn what was happening behind the scenes. Like the way I would want to do with the Brady Bunch. So
Right. And I think that's the gift is we didn't know we'd get here this way. And I don't think we knew what it was going to mean to people. No. We couldn't have possibly known that those many years ago. No. But how lucky are we? I mean, that's, and like if I die tomorrow, kids, if I die tomorrow, I'll be happy and really proud to be a part of Mewtwo. And to be, the first American Mewtwo or the first English speaking Mewtwo is just so people have such memories of this film, and I'm really happy to be a part of that. So
I think I just want to add, and I'm so sorry that you had to deal with the struggles that you did, but maybe there's some solace knowing that coming out of that is when my generation grew up and went back and watched like all these old shows and these movies again and again. So now they could, pay it forward to and just convey like how much like it resonated with us. So now that I'm just glad that you could appreciate, like you're at a place where you could appreciate it now, and just maybe the timing the timing worked out.
No, I agree. I totally agree with you, Steve. I think it happened for the right reason and when it happened. I know it's a hokey thing to say, but I do think things happen when they're supposed to happen for people, and it's a little reductive to say life. Everything happens for a reason, but I think you can find logic in anything. I also think that there are gifts that we can't possibly imagine, and this has been one of them. And I think it's kept me safe. It's kept me sane and sober. And it's one of those things that has just continued to connect me to people. And I think that's what I needed desperately, especially with the fans. And it just brought me so much joy that I didn't think I'd ever experience for this job. A children's movie that I was too good for. It was like, I think, if I look back at where my head was at as a young actor, and I just think it's much more than that. And when people come with their children and they say, I introduce, and they're collecting cards together, the Pokemon cards, or they're, they're going to see the film for the first time in their living room. It's amazing when people say they pass that on to their kids.
Yeah.
And, yes, there's a commercial aspect of the whole animal. There's a huge beast called Pokémon, and that's something we're a part of on a different level. But, it's a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm very grateful for my small part of it, really.
Yeah.
I think we all are.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your artwork now, and where people can, like I follow you on Instagram, and I'm seeing your paintings, and please tell people where they can see this and what you're up to.
Well, yeah, I have an Instagram. I'm one of those lazy actors who I'm in the process right now of producing my own Mewtwo page on Instagram. Right now, my initials J Philip Getty. So JPG, the number 4 ART, JPG for art, or JPEG for art.
Okay.
Is my Instagram ID. So anybody can see the latest paintings I'm working on. I'm posting. Eventually, in the next couple months, that's going to be Mewtwo stuff, and my paintings and my artwork will be there.
Okay.
And primarily Mewtwo artwork. I don't think I'll be. But on my personal page, which is one of a combination of it is right now of the personal and the professional stuff, you can still see my stuff there and my photos from my past and things I've shared, and all my new paintings I'm working on. When I make a new painting, and a lot of them right now are Mewtwo because I go to these Comic Cons and meet the fans, and I've been lucky enough to share the paintings with people. So so I'll post them there. Yeah.
Again,
and that's what I get to do.
Yep.
Yeah. So how lucky are we? And that's been amazing. But I do, as far as what I focus on, I'm a portrait painter, so I paint a lot of portraits of famous Americans, famous actors and singers, and I do that for on a private level for people in commissions, and that's been a joy for me to get to do that. And I truly am happier than I ever was as an actor. I mean, and I love acting, and I'm so grateful I've been a part of the things I got to be a part of. But just for me, Jay, what needed to happen has happened, where I got a chance to just focus on creatively the thing that always brought me joy, which is the painting and the drawing and the stuff that made me feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm back at. This is a very difficult business, and it is a business, show business. And
it's
chaotic,
and that doesn't lend itself to certain things. I mean, it's I every day I wake up, I'm like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? If I could do anything else, I'm like, what? Now I have no skills. Yeah. But it's chaos, and especially like you said, having a success early on is not a healthy thing for many people. And that's why I was sort of curious about it and asked about that. So
I was not prepared for it. And that was a big thing. And I'll say this, the last thing I'll say about my acting career. I had to grieve it. I had to grieve that it was something, and that my mental illness was a part of my story. And this is the big realization that it was inevitable. Mm-hmm. My journey as a person, as a human being on the planet, given the background I had with my mother and my history of mental illness in my family and my sister, and growing up in a household that was very, very complicated and very challenging, as a lot of us have. I don't think it would have ended any other way as far as where I ended. And I don't think anything's over yet, but I think it was inevitable. And I was that little boy growing up in that hot house or that environment with those parents and with this challenge and this gift and intelligence or whatever, the combination of what made me Jay, it wouldn't have happened any other way. And when I accepted that, I realized, and that is a phrase from AA, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Acceptance and serenity, those are the things we strive to have in our lives. And those are clearly a part of my life now. And I don't think I would have gotten there maybe at all if I survived it as an actor. I don't think I was the person, as sensitive as I am as a human being, that was a great gift for my acting, but I don't think I would have survived the career if I hadn't gotten better.
Yeah.
So.
And I love that this project just snuck in there and then reared its head later and I'm so grateful to have met you. And
you too.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have met both of you, and you've been lovely in the meetings of the Comic Con, and this has been a great experience just today to talk about it. And I was very nervous coming into this because I wanted to share, maybe to help people, but also just it's hard to tell your story when you don't quite know where to start. So
yeah, no, and listen, we talked about this before, and I said obviously just stop me if there's anything you don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
but you've been so honest and open, and again, like I said, it just takes one person to hear this that needed to hear it today. So, you know, and
well, I hope it helps.
Yeah. And
I'm
thank
just
you.
lucky.
Yeah.
I'm grateful. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was
Yeah.
really lovely to be a part of this.
Jay Goede rhymes with spaghetti. Mom spaghetti is ready. Let's get ready with Getty. Getty Images.
I thought you were doing 8
things
Mile for a moment there. but
I was
it's
for
not.
a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I lost my train. I'm not a rapper. Let's be clear. Can you rap or beatbox?
My name is Steve, and I'm here to say no.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you to Jay. That was lovely. I am so honored that he felt comfortable sharing his story. I hope if any of you guys listening related to any of that, I hope you took some solace in hearing that you're not alone. And he really is lovely. If you want to meet him at a convention near you, the best thing you can do, like I always say, is write to your local conventions and say, here's a list of people I hope you invite. So yeah, I'm glad that the convention world found him and that he is doing well within it. So
yeah, like coming out of, all that. And now it's like you got a bunch of millennials like me who know all these things and they care about, is like who voiced these characters. The story about being, having the wrong credit in Pokemon Live. I always love when stories kind of go back to they lead back
miscredit.
to that. But that that's the thing. It's like with just how little 4Kids productions were documented, or aliases and miscredits and all that. Like the people that are really like diehards for this, like put in the work to try at this. And I know we've corrected a lot of things over the years, but that's that's been like what was thought of all these years. But
yeah, and then you wonder if they hadn't done it wrong, would anyone have found him? Because there are people that were in the 4Kids shows that people are like, can you please interview so-and-so? And it's definitely an alias, and we definitely haven't figured out what their real name is. So it's kind of this happy accident that they didn't stick to his wishes and credit him with his pseudonym.
You never know. Like it's saying, things happen for a reason, and I think that's one of those. I don't know. But I'm in hindsight, it's like, you know what? That's sometimes, we got to be thankful for some of those mistakes because.
Right. And it does make sense because I would assume that whoever was in charge of making sure the aliases got credited correctly on the movies, the person who was doing that for the theater project probably had no reason to ask, do they use an alias? It just was a different team. It was a different. Yeah. So, and getting replaced again, very 4Kids. Welcome to the club. Official badge of honor. And I was happy to know, because I knew a while ago before he told me that he had gone to New York to do the project and it just didn't work out. But I am glad that it was offered to him. I've kind of, when people have asked me about it, up until now, my answer has been, I don't know, but I know he wasn't living in New York at the time, which was true. And it wasn't my story to tell,
right.
But the truth was he wasn't living in New York at the time.
Once
so
again,
it very easily
the responsibilities hang on the shoulders of the voice actors at conventions. But
right,
now you can answer.
Now I can. I can say, listen to this episode, which is why we made the show. Well, we did another episode, Steve, in the books.
In the pocket.
And I keep picturing little Steve watching this movie with his dad sound asleep. I love that you told that story. That's all I can picture now.
That's I'll give him shit, but the one thing I'm like, well, he did take me to see Mewtwo Strikes Back, and looking back, I'm like, he took one for the team, but
yeah,
I'll still remember
it's
that.
It's a shame that kids can't just go into the movies themselves.
No, thank God.
I don't mean like that. I mean there should be a chaperone who can just take all of them and watch all of them. You know what I mean? So there should be some kind of
I'm sounding like real old man complaining about kids in the movie theater. Adults are just as annoying in the movie theater. So
yes,
I don't know at this
that's
point.
true. Fair enough. I haven't seen a movie in a long. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember that being a packed theater, and every kid every time a Pokemon show up, everyone would just have to shout out the name. It was like this. Like it just felt like you had to like you had to prove like I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
But what was funny was that
it's like singing along at a concert.
Yeah, knowing all the words. What was funny was because that Pikachu's Vacation short started off the movie, and that short introduced Meryl and Snubble to the Western world.
Oh.
And I think the funniest thing was just you see Meryl, and like these two, right? Meryl and Snubble.
Yeah.
And, like Meryl shows up on the screen, and like because you were hearing like Pikachu, Vulpix, Squirtle, and then Meryl shows up, and I just hear a bunch of who. It's like who's that? Who? And at the time, the fan name was Peekaboo for Meryl. Like that was playground stuff. Like, this Pokemon's name is Peekaboo, and if you give a water stone to Pikachu, it turns into this.
I didn't know that.
So I was just like, that's Peekaboo.
Wow. Well, didn't on our Discord channel they were just discussing like the list was, I guess, I don't know if it was released or just dug up, of all these alternate names that the guy who named the Pokemon. And it was Gail Tilden, I think, who talked about some of this, who we interviewed. But this was revealed recently, that the guy had to come up with like 3 versions of everything. And a lot of them, if it's accurate, were actually released. So check out our Discord channel if you are.
That sounds familiar. I think I remember them talking about that, right? Or it was something where it's like, or maybe this was. I'm trying to remember what interview this was. This had to be us. It was like give them like the one you want and then 2 crappy ones. So they choose.
That was Eric Stewart's version of directing. Yes, but I believe Gail did say like they had a lot of versions. But now, and I'm gonna pause. And now I'm gonna find this link, and I'll make sure I post it somewhere on Twitter or somewhere in our Discord channel. Okay, so I did find it. I will. I'm going to post this on our Patreon channel as like just something free that you guys can click on. But it's called a Development Pokemon Red and Blue Localization Glossaries. And it has all of these alternate names and stuff that I will not bore you with right now. But it has like the Japanese name and then some options for different things. So I'll put a link to that up on the Patreon, patreon.com/4Kids Flashback. You don't have to pay to membership to just see this. So I'll give you guys a link to this. We're learning a lot. Things are getting dug up and discovered. And thank you to Jay Goede. Thank you, Steve. We will
catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. For podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening.
Hi, it's Ashley and Jess with Wellness Reality Check. We are 2 health practitioners, moms, and best friends trying to navigate the world of holistic health in a balanced, productive way that brings health to our lives instead of dogmatic extremes. We'll be breaking down health trends, interviewing your favorite health influencers, and always keeping it real. We hope this podcast brings listeners back down to earth, providing a dose of reality in the often idealized world of health and wellness.
Wellness Reality Check. Follow the show now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at wellnessrealitycheck.com.